Show your feelings, but some things are so revealing. You don't want to talk about it, but we can't go on without it, girl.
Hey folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Sean. Carlos, we got an exciting show today. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a different kind of show. We've got the one and only Helene St. James in here, the fabulous beat writer for the Free Press who covers the Red Wings, and author who's written On the Clock, Behind the Scenes with the Detroit Red Wings at the NHL Draft, and The Men and Moments That Made the Detroit Red Wings the Big 50. Those are, two really good books, and you can find them wherever you get books. And Helena could probably tell you more specifically when she jumps in here in a second where she'd like you to find those books. But Carlos, we were all ready for a Stanley Cup parade, and then the Wings go to Ottawa, and I'm not sure what happened, but we're going to let Helena tell us what happened the last couple of nights, and now they're going to sell off everything and trade everybody and start from scratch.
And Helena, your main function today is to make Sean feel good about himself. We're worried about him. He was already starting the parade, planning the parade down Woodward. He had his plans. He had already booked his first and second round travel itinerary to Boston and then wherever else. He was so excited.
That's you, Carlos. We talked about this. I'm not going to let you get away with that with the listeners. We had an hour-long conversation last week about how you put the work in the winter. The Red Wings are yours, so don't do that. Don't be disingenuous. That's one thing for you to be.
Let's just get this straight. My favorite part last week was Sean showing up at Little Caesars and Derek Lalonde going, "Who are you?"
What?
Oh no!
What he said was, "If you had been around."
Okay, so Carlos, he didn't say he implied that. He didn't say it quite like that, but I was going to cop to that on the podcast today when we had Alina. I didn't want to tell you until we were all together. But
was there a gasp or laughter in the room when he said it?
No, it was quiet.
Laughing.
It was. They were probably quietly laughing. So I asked a question, and his first part of the answer was, "Well, if you talk to our local media," so that's how he said it.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm not. So
well, you look like an international man of mystery.
No, I don't. So I ran up to when Lalonde left the room and it broke. I ran up to Todd Beam, the media relations person for the Red Wings, and I leaned in and I said, I met him at the introductory press conference, but I said, I'll come to a skate around or something so I can just reintroduce myself because this is ridiculous. It's totally my fault.
Do
right,
show up and call it a skate around.
You said Lalonde and skate around. It's Lalonde and it's a morning skate. So, all right. Yeah. Lalonde, you deserve that and more, Sean. I'm proud of Newsy.
No, to me, it's a skate around. It's like pickup ball or whatever. But in any case, Elaine is absolutely right. But enough about me.
You were there for that Rangers game when they got into the playoff picture, albeit briefly, and then since then, I can't fault anything. The Saturday loss to Tampa Bay, that was all Vasilevsky, but they just looked atrocious. Monday and then again Tuesday in Ottawa. I thought that was disappointing how they absolutely just got pushed around by the Senators. And those were two huge games for them. They could have, moved up in the standings and kept the Senators from doing so. And instead, now they have the same amount of points.
Carlos, I just want to ask Helena real quick. Did this surprise you, this effort? Because yes, I was there for the Rangers game and they had a lot of fight that night. And then the way they played in Ottawa the last couple of nights, especially the first Ottawa game where you're right, they just got dominated physically. But did the effort surprise you? I mean, giving up 6 goals back-to-back nights, 6-2, 6-1?
More so the lack of composure, because both nights they did score the first goal and then they got caught up in taking penalties. I mean, they went 0 for 8 in, I think it was 13 and a half minutes of man advantage time Tuesday or something. I saw it after, Monday you get punched in the face, you pick yourself up and come out better Tuesday, and instead they lost by an even bigger margin. So I thought more, and they had Villahuso in net, and I mean, I wouldn't fault him. He didn't get much help, but they give up a shorthanded goal, they give up power play goal, the penalty shot. You can argue it was questionable that was called, but officials call things every game that teams aren't happy with, and you can't let that affect you. So I think it was more just the fact that they then played poorly again the next night was more of a surprise than okay, Monday, they weren't going to win out, but I thought it was disappointing how they responded.
Those two games in Ottawa, I mean, they were just. I think the second one when they lost Tuesday night. I mean, special teams seemed to be a problem in that game. The power play both ways, right? I think Ottawa was like 2 for 6 or something, and the Wings just couldn't get in 0 for 8 or whatever it was. Has that been an anomaly, or have they been okay with special teams? I mean, is that just something that was weird for those two games, or has that been kind of a problem throughout?
No, their special teams have kind of been up and down, but they had really been clicking through. They won 9 of 12, and I think 7 of 8, and special teams, especially their power play, was doing really well. And then for them to just do so poorly in both areas. But I think it's just, again, comes back to they just kind of lacked composure and didn't play, strong team defense. They didn't seem able to recover. And, it was early in the game when it was 1-1, and, there was so much time left for them, and instead they let it slip to 4-1, Senators up 4-1 after the first period Tuesday. That to me is a sign of lack of maturity. And I thought they had taken some strides there and were dealing better with just the pressures of trying to become a winning team. I mean, it's tough to close out, but, I just thought it was disappointing that they didn't have better composure, because they had plenty of time left to still make a statement Tuesday. And instead, the statement was, to let themselves get pushed around again.
And is that to me, is this the thing that, this is what we saw last year, right? With Blashill, is they would just go on these nosedives. They look good for a couple games here and there, and they just crash. And I think what we've seen, I don't want to be unfair to them, because 2 games is not a season, people can struggle as hot as they were on that road trip and everything. And, it was great. Were they really going to sustain that kind of clip? Probably not. But, and I think, isn't this kind of what like Yzerman wants to see, is like, how do you handle adversity? How do you respond? If you lose a game 6-2, how do you come back the next night, especially against the same team? And that's the worrisome part to me. Like you said, the maturity, is that they can't stack these not only losses, but bad losses together. And going into Ottawa, Larkin's talking about, this is the playoffs to us. These are our playoffs. This is now a playoff run. Everybody's talking about that. They know it's on the line. To kind of faceplant like this, is there hope for them to respond, to come back from that? Or is this kind of showing who they are? Like, they're just not ready at all to really to compete when the stakes are higher?
Well, I think the surprising part was that they, on that trip, they lost in Seattle and came back with a really good response game in Washington. So, and then they lose to Tampa. But again, that was all Vasilevsky denying them.
45 shots, right?
Yeah, 45 saves, exactly. He was spectacular. And then they come and their response is, and they had been good on the road, and their power play had been good on the road. So it's just baffling, why, and yeah, maturity, and Steve Yzerman, he's at pretty much every game home and road, and, the trade deadline's on Friday. And I think all along there, he's posed, maybe there was a brief window there where you think, okay, maybe he stands pat. He certainly didn't project to be a buyer at any point, because this team is not going to contend for the Stanley Cup. I think at the same time, you can't deny the excitement of, maybe they get in for the first time since 2016. That's great to excite the fan base. It's great for Little Caesars Arena, to see what the playoff and an actual playoff atmosphere would be like there. So, maybe he was going to stand pat, but ultimately all along, Steve Yzerman has to prioritize the team's future as far as what he does at the trade deadline and make some hard decisions. And, he's been a seller every year since he got to Detroit, and certainly looks like that's what he's going to be again this year after these 3 losses.
Well, it's interesting both of you guys use the word maturity, because that's what we heard after the Rangers game, right? In the post-game press conference, we heard that from I know we heard it from the coach. I'm trying to remember if maybe even Andrew Kopp used that word. I know he used the word sacrifice too, but they attributed the streak to some degree to that maturity. And then even against the Rangers, though, right, Helena, they came out a little bit tight and a little bit nervous. And the thinking was, well, they need these kind of experiences because they need to learn how to navigate this. And they did that night. So to me, that made it even a little bit more surprising, especially to your point about them rebounding from Seattle to DC. So look, I understand the talent level's not there to just go out and overwhelm people, but it felt like they were starting to figure out how to compete in certain ways, and that doesn't mean win. Obviously, you're gonna lose, but to Carlos's point, 6'2", 6'1" is I think a little bit surprising. And predictably enough, there's a chunk of the fan base all of a sudden, okay, this rebuild, Yzerman's lost it. It was a fluke in Tampa. He needs to go, et cetera, et cetera. There's always going to be that chunk of the fan base. But I'm curious what your sense is now, kind of staying here with the trade deadline stuff. Do these two games change? I know they have one more game for the trade deadline. Do you absorb that and then see, or do you believe in the idea that even if you just stay pat, that the young guys deserve the chance to see if they can make this run and learn some things making this run, even if they don't go get anybody?
Well, I think you certainly want to see what they can do, but I think also if you're Steve Yzerman, you really have to prioritize, again, what's best for the future. And you can't, and if you don't think you're going to get a potential or a pending unrestricted free agent signed, it's just too risky to let him get to free agency this summer. Or, even potentially, you can trade a guy's rights, but you're not going to get as much for him as you would at the trade deadline. And I think that's what Steve has had to weigh all along as far as what is best for the franchise, not just right now, but longer term. And that's where, the players in the room, they just have to focus on, what they can control and perform as well as they can every night. And, what's interesting too is during that 5-game winning streak and, 5 of 6 and onwards, they didn't have Lucas Raymond for much of that, and other guys, they were missing their top right winger, and other guys, they filled in and dug a little harder and won. And Andrew Kopp did talk about that. He said, sometimes you see it happen. You miss a key guy, and other guys just take it upon themselves to do a little bit more. And now Lucas Raymond comes back, and that they should have been better, and instead they weren't. So I just think that the players have to control what they can and try and make it as tough on Steve as possible, and kind of force him to say, okay, I got to keep this team together. But they didn't do that in Ottawa.
That's called, real quickly, Carlos, we call that in basketball the Patrick Ewing theory. The New York Knicks made the NBA Finals in 1999 without their best player. He went down, and then they made the finals. So to that point, it does. I don't think it happens in football. Well, hey, the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl a few years ago with their backup. So I guess it's the same idea. But anyway, sorry, Carlos. I just wanted to.
Well, I have a question. So let me ask you this, because I wonder sometimes if we're just a bunch of dumb sports writers. Helena's smarter than we are. Obviously, Sean, that's not a very high bar to clear, but still, we're just monkey sports writers. We look at wins, losses, and power play, blah blah blah, all this stuff. But are we playing checkers, and is Steve Yzerman playing chess? Because he told an interesting story on a podcast, I think it was this week or last week. And he talked about his first year with Tampa Bay, and that, they had a young Steven Stamkos. I think Victor Hedman was young at the time. And they were trying to build something there. And at the trade deadline, they get Eric Brewer, defenseman, to help their defense. And they end up making the playoffs. Well, they make the playoffs, and he says it rejuvenates the fan base. They increase their season ticket sales. How much of that is something, part of the calculus that he uses, as far as not only is it about, teaching these guys or helping them this and that, whatever, but you want to win, but how much does it come down to the balance ledger for Mr. Ilitch, for Chris Ilitch, and saying, listen, this is all, if we add somebody, maybe the fan base can smell the red meat. They can taste it. They know this team is getting better. whether we're a legit playoff team or not, if we add a piece, I don't know what that piece is, but if there's a piece, that will only encourage the fan base. Maybe we sneak into the playoffs with that piece, right? And then what happens to ticket sales there? And we know, I mean, having covered this team for a long time, I think Ken Holland used to say it. They didn't make money. And this was back then in Joe Louis. They didn't make money until I think they got to the conference finals. They had to go deep into the playoffs to make money. But that's what this game's about, really, I think, from Yzerman's perspective, or at least a significant part, right? What do we do to encourage the fan base, increase ticket sales, increase money, increase all this stuff, the suites, all that stuff, parking, all that. How much is that, do you think, into his equation of like, listen, we're not that far away. Maybe we need to be buyers this time or soon, if not now.
I think you have a system similar to the U.S. government, right, with legislative, executive, and judicial. And in hockey, you have business, management, and players. And Derek has talked about the management coach layer that, it's Steve's decision who gets waived, who gets sent down, who gets called up. Chris Illich has to worry about the business side of thing. Steve, I mean, he has to be budget conscious. He has, a salary cap to deal with. But, in order to make a trade, I mean, to make a big splash or something, you have to give up a future. You give up a pick or a prospect. And that's the last thing the Wings want to do right now. You look at what Toronto has done the past few days. I mean, that's what the Wings used to do, in my book about the Red Wings and the draft, I talk extensively about there was a time there where they didn't have any first round picks, but it was worth it for them to trade them because they had so many pieces. It was time for them to go all out for the Stanley Cup. They're not in that position right now. So I think even though you can say, how great to actually make the playoffs and play Boston or Carolina, probably one of those two if you're a wild card team. But Steve has to consider the future, and that's, again, where I go back to. If you think you're going to lose a player to unrestricted free agency, you are just much better served by trading him at the deadline than hanging on to him. I mean, that's kind of why the trade deadline is now. It's to make it interesting. Teams have to decide, okay, are you for sure in? Are you on the bubble? Or are you just, fire sale? And the Wings aren't fire sale. They're right there on the bubble. But that's part of what makes it more complicated for Steve and his brain trust is just trying to figure out, okay, what's realistic this season and what's best for the future.
Well, I would think that they have a pretty good idea. They're going to keep Larkin, right? Bertuzzi.
Yeah.
I mean, Bertuzzi's the one that's the interesting question. And Carlos brings up a good point, an interesting point. But I have a slightly different take on it, though. I think they're all related in a sense that you go get, he's talking about what happened in Tampa. Well, you increase the ticket sales, you increase the atmosphere. That fuels the team at home, right? They can feel that. I mean, so that buoys things in a certain way. So it's kind of a chicken or egg thing. But so it all feeds together. So it's not just to make money. That atmosphere can help win, which then makes more money, which can help then make more wins, or not make more wins, but you get more wins or win more. So it's kind of interesting like that. But so what's your, not to put you on the spot completely here, Helena, but what's your gut? What's your, specifically with Bertuzzi, I guess, what's your gut or just your best educated guess as to what might happen?
I know there's been progress made with Dylan Larkin contracts, and it's, as I've been writing, it serves both sides best for there to be an agreement. And I think at some point I wouldn't worry whether Dylan isn't signed by the trade deadline. He'll re-sign at some point. I think Bertuzzi, there's more uncertainty there, and that's why Steve all along has been listening to offers there. I mean, and Tyler, you go back to his junior days and AHL days. He's a playoff performer, so there's certainly going to be interest in him from other teams. And if Steve gets something that's going to be better for the franchise's future, for the rebuild's future, I think you have to take it, because if worst case scenario, you hang on to him, they miss the playoffs, and he goes to free agency, and you have neither a chicken nor an egg to show for it, and
yeah, totally.
So that's, yeah. So So you have Kale. I don't know.
Well, with Bertuzzi, like, I'd hate to see him go. I think he's the most offensively talented player the Wings have. You know, I like how hard he plays. I like his vision on the ice. He does things I think that really nobody else does on that team. But he's 28, right? So he does have a little bit of trouble with injury, it seems, especially this year, and then the whole COVID thing and all that. It's a complication, but if they get good return, you can't fault them. But it does signal something. Probably nothing's happening this year, right? If you let them walk, we're not committed to winning this season. But which is a shame because everybody I think was hopeful. But it's funny, right?
Well, yeah. Well, what's such a shame about this season is, second game of the season in New Jersey, Tyler Bertuzzi breaks a hand and Jake Brana and is placed into the NHL and NHLPA Players Assistance Program. And certainly you have to prioritize Jacob Brana's overall health. But just looking at it from a hockey standpoint strictly, those were two guys, Bertuzzi and Brana, the Wings were counting on for around 30 goals each.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we never got to see the team the Wings hoped they had. And yeah, injuries are part of every season. It's just, it really stank for the Wings that to lose both of those guys 2 games into the season because they're such significant offensive players. And I don't think we've seen close to what Jacob can do in these now 3 games he's played since he was called back up. Joining a team so late in the season and he missed 2 months it's incredibly hard because everybody else is playing so much faster. So, and Tyler then came back, I think for 2 weeks and then broke his other hand. So both of those guys, I don't think we've seen anywhere close to what they can really, how big of an impact they can have, unfortunately. And that was what was so intriguing coming into the season. They really looked like they might be, very good all the way around.
No, they certainly had the chance, and I think we got a glimpse of that. Even without Raymond, we got a glimpse of that. Well, and without Verana, too. Bertuzzi was there, though, during the 7 of 8 and 9 of 12. And yeah, to your point, but unfortunately, that's how that goes. Also, unfortunately, I think we need to let you go, Helene. But
Okay.
Well, unless you want to stick around for another segment, I know you're busy, so I don't want to.
She's writing her 3rd book, Sean. Come on.
Yeah, no,
yes, I am.
She is writing.
So put it on your Christmas list for 2024.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell us real quickly where the best?
Both on the clock, behind the scenes with the Detroit Wings at the NHL draft and the Big 50, the men and moments that made the Detroit Red Wings are available at bookstores and online at any booksellers. And if you want them personalized, just reach out to me, hstjames at freepress.com, and I'll be happy to personalize them and send them anywhere in the world that can be delivered to. So great gift, great for yourself.
Well, that's a lot of good information there. I recommend y'all get out and get your copies. Helene, thanks for joining us. We've got, one more game for the trade deadline. I think Seattle's coming to town, Thursday night, and then the trade deadline's Friday. That's, it's going to be interesting. Lots to talk about. We'll see how this unfolds. I know there are several teams all of a sudden between them and the last wild card spot, which is not how it was a week ago or almost a week ago. But
and do come back anytime to LCA.
Oh, I will. No, I will. I want to catch Carlos. I think I have one more game to go to catch him, to be honest. Carlos acts like he's there 20 games.
That is true. There is a chart that keeps attendance of reporters. That's because no team has anything better to do than to track. It's all part of this deep dive analytics is keeping track of reporters. And
that's the nature of sports. My goal is to be able to go into a press conference with the head coach and not get said, oh yeah, well, if you talk to our local media. So that would be my goal. It's a worthy goal. But anyway, thanks again for joining us. It's always fun to have you.
Yep, my pleasure.
And we will definitely get you on. Yeah, absolutely. We will. We'll get you on before the end of the season. It's going to be an interesting one. They're not done yet, right, Helene?
Oh, no. And they can still make the playoffs. We can still be, scouting the first round in another month or so. So
yeah. Plus, I want Carlos to get to go to Boston. Apparently, I found out the other day that he loves Boston. So we want to get him there.
For the clam chowder?
Chowder and the Paul
Chowder?
Revere's house. And
Yeah, I was going to
all
say
of
it probably
that.
has nothing to do with food. Is it Paul
It's
Revere's
actually
house?
great Italian food on the north end. So
They do. No, the North
I
End's
just
cool.
go around throwing tea into various bodies of water.
Not only that, they make their lobster rolls. There's a little Italian seafood restaurant in the North End. They make their
There we
lobster
go.
rolls with butter instead of mayonnaise. So although it's really rich, and I wouldn't recommend eating it and then go to a game. You'll be in a coma. But in any case, all right, Helena, we'll let you go, and we'll get you back soon. And Carlos, you and I will take a quick break here and be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Sean. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Sean. Carlos, I guess it's just you and me now.
Helena, I mean, the truth is we were she's like a Lyft driver, so the meter's running when she shows up, and or a cab driver. I don't know if it happens on Lyft.
She'd had enough of us, is what you're saying.
It was too much jibber jabber before we even started, so you could just tell she's itching to do stuff.
No, yeah, she was. Yeah, that was funny. By the way, it was kind of. I wasn't embarrassed because it's just the nature of the job and it's how it goes, but it was comical that the Detroit Red Wings hockey coach, when I asked him a question, referred to the other writers in the room and said, "Well, if you talk to them, you know." Oh boy, that was yeah. I just thought, oh, Carlos is going to have fun with that.
Well, the thing. Okay, I'm gonna be honest here. He said that kind of to me too when I was at a game.
Oh, he did?
Ago. Yeah, I mean, I've been to like 4 or 5 games, and
maybe 3, but that's all right.
Zooms and all this and whatever, and and he's like, well, our local media will say that blah blah blah, implying that I'm not part of the local media because he didn't recognize me. But I think with the Red Wings, and probably the Pistons too. It's like there's a small group that covers a team intensely on a very, daily, day by day basis. And then, anybody who's not part of that tight team, tight cadre of reporters probably feels like, are you from here or are you not? But he needs to be careful about how he says that, because he's going to say that one day to Mitch Albom, and he's going to look weird saying that, because he should know who Mitch Albom is.
Well, he probably does know Mitch, so that's a different level of celebrity and fame. It's interesting when I go to the Pistons games and I ask Dwayne Casey a question. He says, "Hi, Sean," or "Thank you." He always uses my name, and at some point in the
because you're at like every other shoot around and game, and you've been to. It's different. I mean, and that's the difference.
Yeah, no, I've been on the road with him, although that was a few years ago now. But look,
I'll tell you. By the way, can I tell you one funny story about this? About why you need to be careful. This is, if any coaches or high-level players are listening to this, I'm sure many are.
Yeah, nobody is, but I don't know that we have a couple listeners.
This is 2006 at the U.S. Open at Winged Foot. Phil Mickelson, who is kind of the Aaron Rodgers mold of I know everything, I'm smarter than everybody in the room and whatever. And we're there, and Mitch is not there. He does not go to majors. He doesn't travel for golf, all that stuff. But I'm there, and Mike Lupica's there. He's the longtime, former columnist at the New York Daily News, and he'd been on the Sports Reporters with Mitch on ESPN. So Lupica asks a question, and Phil answers with, "Well, Mitch," and then goes on, and the room just like you can feel this implosion of like people trying to not laugh, but not cry, and not. Like they don't know what to do with themselves. Like heads are literally exploding. Like it was just the talk of the media center for the rest of that day and maybe into the rest of the week. So if you're gonna say you don't know who somebody is or you think you know who they are, it's better to not say anything unless you absolutely know who that person is. So, and I don't think Lalonde was calling you out or calling me out.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't calling me out at all. He was just I wasn't embarrassed at all. It's just
it's not like Tom Izzo, who has your portrait with his family dining table, right?
As columnists at the Detroit Free Press, and I'm sure our colleagues over at the News, Bob Wanowski and John Neal would say the same. And this is not an excuse at all, but we are to some degree responsible for 8 different teams.
Oh yeah,
and you're just going to get to know some of the players and coaching staffs and management staffs and those teams better than others. It's just kind of how it goes. And we all kind of have our own strengths and then also interests, right? I mean, we have to know just a base level about everybody, but we're just going to know more about some and gravitate to those. It's just kind of how it works. And in any case, so I it's part of the job, but I also wasn't embarrassed in any way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's fine. But I did think you think that was funny, and obviously, Helene thought that was funny. But I before we move on here to the Lions and the combine and the draft and how they need to go sign. Well, what, Tom Brady? Is that what you said? I can't remember.
I think he's available. He's a free agent.
Yeah, I know he probably is available to trade the team for Tom Brady, whatever. Just real quickly with the Wings again. Here's my question to you: can't Detroit have nice things? or if the line, I mean, it makes you wonder, are we setting God, I hate to even say this, man. I don't want to, these poor folks, are we setting ourselves up for just a spectacular fall? And I don't mean you and me. I mean, we collectively, the Lions fans, Southeastern Michigan, the whole state really, except for some Packers fans up north and maybe a few Bears fans over on the western beaches. What are we setting ourselves up for this fall? I mean,
the Lions?
Yeah, I mean, right? I mean, what if they faceplant for whatever reason, injury luck? I mean, just a couple of some tough end of the game losses combined with injuries and whatever. I mean, it can happen. It happens all the time.
Well, and it was really weird that you're saying that because I just thought about that last night or today before we were going to do the podcast and talking about the Lions and that idea of, Detroit right now, and Michigan in general is ready for a Super Bowl party. I mean, they're already picking out their pizzas and their
divisional champs for sure, right?
Yeah, division NFC champions, and anything less than that is.
It's not just here though, right? All of a sudden, they become the national darlings in the NFL and NFL's media.
In betting. Yeah, the betting line on them is high, but that has really not that much to do with a lot of things. Anyway, but that's the thing. It's like, and this is all based on them going 1-6 and then 8-2. I was like, it couldn't just be a straight up. This team just they won 2 of their first 3, and then they lost 1 or 2, and then they won 3 in a row. And it was like, no, it was a faceplant to begin the season. They got to fire a coach, and then they make up for it. And it was an impressive run, but to build all that hope on basically half of a season, the second half of the season, is really that's so Lions and so Detroit. Like we're gonna grasp onto any fringe of hope that we can hold on to. I don't blame them. I don't blame people for being excited. They deserve it, because if you watch those games during that impressive run, and they should have, the idiot Seahawks had taken care of business. The Lions should have been in the playoffs, so they deserve to be there. Whether they're going to be world beaters and conference champions and all that, that's kind of asking a lot, especially when we haven't really. We have to see what they do in free agency, and we have to see what they do in the draft. But right now, that defense doesn't really convince me of much. And you're keeping your defensive coordinator. You lost your most, senior, decorated, trusted, assistant coach, and Todd Wash, the line coach. So unless Dre Berlai has some kind of secret, weapon in his back pocket to make the secondary amazing all on his own, they still have a ways to go on one side of the ball. So I don't know, but you're right. Maybe we're all setting ourselves up for a spectacular disappointment.
Well, I was just thinking, and I'm not predicting that necessarily. It's just that's how life goes sometimes. I was just thinking about it because there was so much buzz, at least among Wings fans, 5-6 days ago, right? Well, before Tampa, I don't think Tampa tamped it down, because they actually played really well against Tampa. They just couldn't, as Helena pointed out earlier, just couldn't get the.
Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the world right now.
The puck of the net, yeah. But they played really well. They competed, and they did in Ottawa. But there was all of a sudden some buzz, and it's the right kind of buzz, because they're young, and they have a new coach, and they looked like they were coming together a little bit. It's a little bit. I don't want to say it's completely similar, but it's like last year. You're going out of spring training here in a week. to hang out with the Tigers. I was down there last year toward the very, very end of spring training on a field. I don't remember. I was in Dunedin when they were playing the Blue Jays, and I'm trying to remember. Avila was out on the field, and maybe even AJ Hinch. And this was toward the end. They had a couple of games left before they were coming up north to start the season, and they were talking about how they expect to make the playoffs. Right, that was the goal.
Yeah,
and they actually said it.
Sure.
And then we saw what happened. So I don't know. The Pistons are just kind of. Yeah, that's a different story. But that's why I was joking. Like, can we have nice things in Detroit? It's just, I think, Carlos, I'm curious what you think about this. It's been so long that we've had any meaningful postseason success with any of the 4 pro teams that it's that any kind of little thing, like the second half of the Lions season, right? Like the last third of the Tigers season, the season before, that set up last spring training's expectations, like the 9-12 stretch we just saw with the Wings. We haven't quite had that buzz other than winning the lottery with Cunningham with the Pistons, but then he gets hurt and they kind of stop that momentum. But yeah, are we just that desperate to hang on to any little thing because it's been about a decade or so since any team has been great? Probably longer if we're using the word great.
Yeah, great. Great's a strong word. Yeah, I mean, we both know. I mean, we say this all the time. It's one of the best sports cities in the country. And when you've had fairly recent success and big success from especially the Pistons and the Red Wings, you want that. And there's people. It's not like the Lions where everybody who remembers them being good is dead. Like it's. Everybody remembers. Most of the people now still remember. The going to work. Some of them, the bad boys. The Red Wings run for sure. Everybody remembers that. So you want that. You have
Tigers.
That taste.
The Tigers played in 2 World Series.
The Tigers.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's pretty good.
Absolutely. And that's when the checkbook was open. Ilitch, Mike Ilitch, wanted to see a World Series win before he died. So he was just, throwing out the Benjis, left and right. And they just never happened, but they were close and they were a really great team. They were fun and they signed big free agents and that's part of it, I think. Besides the winning, it's like the excitement of the Red Wings signing Brett Hull and Robitaille and Hasek and all that. And who do the Lions ever get?
The Tigers trading for Cabrera, right? Giving up a couple prospects.
Yeah, Cabrera, early Prince Fielder, say what you want, but he was a huge signing. All that. I mean, that
started with Pudge, right? But
yeah. And even the Pistons, we were talking about this a few days ago, right? When they got Rashid, I mean, that was the thing that put them over the top, and so that's what we're missing is the excitement that goes not only with the winning, but all the little extra stuff, getting those the fun players. Even when the Pistons were signing Allen Iverson, like, hey, we still want to compete, we still want to be good,
trying to hang on.
Trying to hang on, and
just the enjoyment of, because you're right, because it obviously winning is the thing, but it's not just that. You can't just have that. There has to be other reasons to watch sports and identify with a team, and most of that is watching players either develop or perform, or both. And that's to your point, right? You get to see. There's nothing quite like having the highest the sport that you love played by some players that you identify with because they're from your area, played at the highest level, to use the Harbaugh phrase, right? That's the thing. They're not going to win, the sports we're talking about, 162 games in baseball and 82 games in hockey and basketball. So yeah, of course, even the best teams you're going to lose, but it's the level of performance that keeps you coming back, right? To watch in January and February.
Yeah. And I think in Campbell and Holmes' first year in 2021 with the Lions, they showed signs, even though the wins weren't there, 3.5 wins, they showed improvement. They showed the beginnings, the kernel of something improving. And they went through the growth pains and everything of the growing pains with Anthony Lynn and had to get, make a move and all that. And then last year was the same thing, even during the 1-6 streak, it wasn't that bad. And then they made changes there with Aubrey Pleasant, and the defense got better and the offense was great the whole season. So you have to look at that nuance. And I think the Red Wings are the same boat, like even though there was some buzz during that, that stretch of 9 wins and 12 games, whatever it was.
And did put them into the playoff.
It put them in place, but they'd already been close before earlier in the season, and they were playing better. I mean, you really see, the short version of, your BFF, Derek Lalonde, hammering this home all the time about managing the puck, being responsible, reducing the risk in their game.
Which they did not do in Ottawa, right?
That was some of it.
Especially the second game, the odd man rushes and so forth. And
some of it was that. I mean, I don't think it was wholesale, just we don't care or we're being irresponsible. They could have definitely done better, but it was a lot of it. Special teams was a lot of it. But for the most part, the whole season, they have done a pretty good job of listening to what he's preaching and putting it into practice. It's not spectacular. And that's the thing. It's like they don't have a superstar on their team,
No, they don't.
So they're not fun to watch the way like your favorite team, the Oilers, are fun to watch with Connor McDavid.
But they were fun to watch because they were fun to watch to me during this streak because they were starting to. There's just a certain togetherness. I mean, there was the night of the Rangers game. There was a give and go between. God, I can't even remember who now. This is terrible. It was a cop goal, and it was a give and go between Rasmussen and somebody, and it was just really pretty, and simple. But it's you were just starting to see more of that. The certain level of feistiness. They're not the most physical team, but they were just playing with a bit of grit, to use your boy Dan Campbell's word. And I think that's fun for right. Plus, they were getting really good goaltending from Husso. But I think that's fun with a young team.
Well,
right?
I'll tell you something. I'm going to date myself. It is, and growing up in LA, I was a LA Kings fan, and this team reminds me a little bit of who the Kings were before Wayne Gretzky got there in the 80s. In the mid to late 80s, they had Luc Robitaille, they had some good players, some, Dave Taylor and guys like that. Well, the two big things that they did, and they had Tom Webster was their coach for a while. And I remember one year he made a big deal before the season started saying, hey, our goal this year is to reduce our goals against by 50 goals. That was the mandate. The way that Lalonde came in and said very, very pointedly, the focus is to reduce the risk in our game. So every coach has their own little thing, but that was a goal, and they met it. But the difference for the Kings was when they traded, and they had Barry Melrose, they hired him as the coach. But when they traded for Wayne Gretzky, they made a huge gamble. They traded for him, and then they got Kelly Rudy, a really good goalie, with the Islanders. And they started adding little pieces, getting more guys from the Oilers, adding pieces. But they knew that they did not have a superstar because Robitaille wasn't really amazing yet. They had some good players, the Bernie Nichols and stuff. These are Matt Rasmussen. This is Robbie Fabry. These are, good players, but not stars. They needed to add a star or two and then keep adding to it. And that's what the Red Wings lack right now. They don't have that star. They have Husso. Husso's a very good goalie. And that was a big acquisition.
And they have a future. They've got a great young defenseman, right? So the top defenseman.
They do, but they need more. They need Wallman's pretty good, but they need. I like Seider, but he's not Drew Doughty. He's not like this great, amazing quarterback of the power play. I think they're kind of missing that. I'd like Seider to maybe grow.
He might. I mean, when I was there the other night, the thing that, and you can see this on TV some, but the thing about watching him in person is just he's never rushed. And I don't know if it's just me, and I'm drawn to that in just sports in general because I love watching players that play at their own speed and kind of control that within the larger context of the game. They don't get sped up or rushed. They have their own pace. He's always in control for you. He plays like he's 30, in a way. The way
he makes weird decisions.
Maybe decisions, but just the way he moves and the way he skates. And the feel for it, you can see that there's a real maturity in that, and I'm drawn to that naturally. But I think there's a lot of room for him to get better because he's just got this baseline of, and Lidstrom. I'm not saying he's Lidstrom, obviously, but Lidstrom. Nobody's
going to be Lidstrom.
The great ones always do. They have an ability to kind of bend time a little bit.
Lidstrom never made a mistake. I think in all his years that he played, he never
for sure,
made one mistake.
But the one of the common themes to me, or common traits to me among great athletes in about any sport, is their ability to bend time a little bit. And
That's a good one to have. I wish I had that.
Yeah,
Time bender.
And Sider's he's got that. I don't know what he'll ultimately do with it, but in any case, I don't want to get too sidetracked on him. I just really enjoy watching him skate and play.
Yeah, it'll be. I like his game, but I'm not. I'll be honest. I was never like a huge Lidstrom fan because I like my defenseman to be a little
I know
fiery.
The subtleties of
gritty.
life are maybe
Lidstrom
not your thing, but that's okay. You offer a lot of other things.
Yeah, and like Ben Sherrod is more my speed of defenseman. A guy who's going to throw his elbows around a little bit and hit some dudes. Drew Doughty's one of my all-time favorite players, but definitely a defenseman. A guy who, missing half of his teeth and he's willing to throw down and he's so sure of himself and aggressive.
That's
coach's corner. I miss it.
Yeah, right. In any case, I wouldn't give up on the Wings just yet, right? I mean, I think what we see. I mean, they're still playing winning hockey now. If they completely fall off here, which is what happened last year, although that process started a little bit earlier in the season. But then it's a different conversation this summer, right? I mean, what they have 20 games or whatever. I don't know if they go 5-12 and 3 or whatever. Then that's not going to be good, right? And that'll change the conversation for sure.
Yeah, and Lalonde mentioned after the game when they lost to Ottawa the second night, he mentioned that before they went on the winning streak with the 9 wins and in 12 or whatever, that someone had written, I think one of the players had written something in the locker room was they were going to have to go like 9-3 to make a serious run at the playoffs and get back into contention. And they kind of, I think they went 8-4 during that stretch. So that he was talking about. So I think that they're very aware of this, come what may at the trade deadline. But I think they're very aware that they're not that far. And your guy, Mo Sider, said it last year when he won the Calder. He's like, we want the playoffs at Little Caesars. I mean, they want it. Larkin needs to get back there. He hasn't been there since he was a rookie. They do need to experience that. And that's the thing with hockey, too, is you got to go through the playoffs once or twice to feel that intensity, to compete at that level. I'd love to see. And I've seen the Red Wings. Listen, they've played some really good games, some intense games. They have that spirit in them. Talent level is a different question, but that talent doesn't always win because, as I told you, as I've complained many times, the LA Kings should have eliminated your boy Connor McDavid in 6 games last year, even though the Oilers had much more talent and better health. The Wings the Kings didn't even have
talent. Does usually win, but
hurt.
Just not in hockey.
In hockey, it's a defensive game, and you can be methodical, you can be careful, and this is where Lalonde's managing the risk in their game that really pays off in the playoffs.
No, for sure, and they've even been scoring reasonably well. Like, we were talking about the power play earlier when Helene was there. They've been pretty good on the power play this year.
They're 5-on-5. They're a pretty good team. They're not one of the. They're I don't know what the metrics would be, but my guess they'd be above average as a 5-on-5
I was
team.
thinking about it when I was there the other night, and I didn't write this, what I wrote, but I did write this actually after I went and see him play. They play Edmonton because they've got the stars, a couple of them. But you're right, they don't have a superstar, but what they do have they've got several guys that have some offensive. I mean, they've got some ability, right? They got a bunch of good players. They have 7-8 good players, maybe more. They just don't have any great players. And maybe the goalie
players
got a chance to beat, right?
Yeah, if you have good players and they buy into the system and it's a good system, I mean, you've got a chance. That's what gives you do.
But you're living as Lon said after the Rangers game. And just one of the things that I ask him, but the margin of error is just small. So, and that's a tough way to operate over the course of a season, right? When you don't have the superstar talent, is just go out and win your games. Although they kind of did win that way against the Rangers. They didn't necessarily outplay them. They did it in a couple of stretches. They just had some of their better players make a couple plays. But anyway, that margin of error is just not that great, right? Dan Campbell talked about that all fall. Our margin of error. We have to play a very specific way. We have to do specific things, and we got to learn how to make winning plays within that small margin of error. And to me, that's where the Wings are. And right?
Yeah, there's nobody who can just take over a game.
Exactly. And it's not that wears you out, but it is exhausting in a way, right? Because grinding like that game after game after game. And they've done a decent job of that. And I wonder a little bit if I don't know if it's just the moment in Ottawa or whatever, because they did show that early against the Rangers. And Alon talked about this, actually, that the moment got to them early and then they found their way out of it. But they were home. Maybe that makes a difference too. And, you get an unexpected goal and then you can go from there. But although weirdly enough, to Helene's point, they scored they scored first each game against Ottawa. So I don't know, man. I'm fascinated by the psychology of that, by those areas that you operate. Is whatever you get for Bertuzzi going to be worth giving him up if they do make a run and get the experience of the young guys and getting a taste of that? I mean, that's what you don't know, right? That's kind of a gamble that I mean, what do you think that Yzerman's got?
I think that if you're not getting a player back in return somehow, some player who's close, who's either whatever you might want to call him a top 6 forward or something, or top
defenseman.
4 defenseman or something who's going to help you, not just draft picks that are going to maybe pan out in 3 years. That's, I think, what would be deflating is if you get some draft picks but no immediate help at all, or a guy who's going to be, still has another year on his contract at least, who's not just a rental or whatever, because that's not going to serve you much. But I would prefer, that he give this team a chance as much as possible to try to make the playoffs this year. I mean, I think this. I've liked what the Red Wings have done this year. I liked what Lalonde has done. I like how they responded. Are they amazing? No, but like Helene said, with Vrana and Bertuzzi being hurt, they missed some pieces. And look at, Yzerman just needs to look at Husso, right? He knew that Nedeljkovic was not going to be the answer. And so he went out and he traded for Husso. It got him. And without Husso, this is a completely different season. This is worse than last year. It's maybe a faceplant, so talent matters, so, okay. I know, to Yzerman, and as Helena said, it's the cardinal sin to just give up a player, let him walk in free agency, and you get absolutely nothing back. But there's also a lot to be said for a team that's battling for a playoff spot, and let's see if they can get there. Because I think if you get there, if you keep Bertuzzi and you get there and you make the playoffs, and even if you get swept by Boston or whatever, at least you got there. And that matters. I think that matters for the team, the players, their experience, for the fans as well. And like I said, for season ticket sales, you bet your butt they're going to go up if they make the playoffs. And that there's excitement, first playoffs in Little Caesars Arena history. So
Wings playoffs.
I think that Wing. Yeah, we're not talking about your Pistons. So yeah, that counts for something. But I don't know. Yzerman just is always considering. He just doesn't want to talk about the playoffs. He's just really I don't know if it's ever going to be time. I don't know until he's hoisting the cup again. I don't know if he's ever going to admit it's time for the team to make.
He's very, very deliberate. Yeah, we'll see what like we were just saying. We'll see what happens the last 6 weeks here, whatever it is, 20 games or so. We'll see what, or maybe by the time you listen to this, 19 games, I guess. But we'll see what happens. I know we've referenced the Lions here. We thought we might talk a little bit more about the Lions. I mostly just wanted to talk about your column on Jalen Ramsey and the idea of should the Lions take big swings. I did not necessarily want to talk about your column on Jalen Ramsey and how you started your column off with how you perform at the Free Press, which implied that you are great, that was sort of a funny way to start. But oh my God!
No, that was another call. Oh my
God! Was that a different call? Oh, that was a different column. I'm getting them confused. Sorry about that.
I write too much, Sean. When you write more than once a week, it's hard to keep track.
So one was 1 week and one was last week. Okay, yeah. Anyway, no, we'll talk Lions next week, maybe. The combine will be over, and we'll get Dave Burkett back in here, and he can give us a rundown. He's a draft guru. I'm sure I have a second mock. We can talk about what he sees or what he saw in Indy. Well, maybe we can get him. If not, we'll some lines. In any case, we need to take one more quick break and pay some bills, and then we'll be right back to finish up so we can hear about Carlos's favorite thing and finish up Free Press Sports with Carlos and Sean. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Sean. It's that time of the show, Carlos. It's your time.
My time. It's my time, but then it's your time when you steal whatever I say. I know you're going to steal this one. I know for sure.
What you're grateful your power came back on? Your favorite thing was
I didn't lose power.
But the world's out to get you. 700,000 people lost power. Not you, but the world's out to get you. You ruminate on that a little bit.
All right. My favorite thing is very simple. And actually right up your alley too, Sean. This is why you're going to steal it. It is that after a long time, and I've heard of this, and you're going to probably be shocked or sad that it hasn't happened, but it finally happened, is I finally got to go to Mr. Spots, the sandwich shop in your neck of the woods in Ann Arbor, right down there on State Street with Central Campus. And it was fun because we were going to pick up my kid who goes to school there, and it was me and my wife, and we said, "Hey, let's go here," and nobody had been there, so I figured my kid's going to school, she's got to go to Mr. Spots, right? So Michigan's on winter break. They just started. This is on Sunday, and they're playing Wisconsin at Chrysler Center, and I'm sure you were at that game. You go to every single game, so. And so we're in Mr. Spots, and it's just, if you haven't been there, it's just one of these cool, I think it was opened in 86 or something.
I was at that game.
You were at that game, of course. And it's got like wood paneling, I think about 60 pictures of Tom Brady, a lot of stuff from hockey and different things. It's just a cute little hole in the wall place, but their cheesesteaks are just about as good as that you'll find in Philadelphia. And the food was great. And it was a cool little environment. It wasn't crowded because the campus was kind of empty. But we were watching the game on TV, and Michigan came roaring back and won that game. We didn't stay for the end of it. Hunter Dickinson's amazing shot. But it was just a fun. It was like this quintessential Ann Arbor, experience that I've been waiting to have. So I really enjoyed it, and the food was great. So props to Mr. Spots. And maybe we'll go there and share a cheesesteak one of these days.
Sure, there's a cheesesteak on the other side of town that's about as good, and it's a place called Izzy's Hoagies.
Oh,
yeah,
as good or better?
I haven't had Mr. Spots in a while, so
okay,
but I like it. Yeah, no, they're similar. It's funny though. The president of Michigan, the University of Michigan, Mr. Santa Ono, tweeted out a few days ago that he'd finally had a Mr. Spots, and he was recommended it.
Yeah. I'm in good company, see?
Yeah, no, I thought maybe you ate with him when you were starting to tell the story.
I'm not at that level. If I was Sean Windsor, I'm sure.
No, those are the kind of connections you have and make, and that's good for you. It's good. You should handshake your way through.
He's a fun president, isn't he? He does.
I don't know much about him, but he's fun on social media for sure.
He's fun, and if you didn't get a chance to read Neil Rubin's story about him when they were at the college football playoff out in Phoenix, you read it because he had a lot of fun talking to him and writing about what he's like and interacting with the fans, and he really gets it. His predecessor Schlissel did not. He just was very open about not knowing about anything about sports and football, even though it's a football school. So there was a disconnect that I think Ono does not have, and it's probably a fun time to have a president like that.
No, for sure. Yeah. Again, I don't know much about him, and I don't know what the folks that teach and do all the stuff that makes that university go. I don't know what they think about him, but yeah, social media wise, he's definitely fun. You posting selfies, hanging out with students and laughing, and that kind of thing. So. That's probably pretty smart. My favorite thing is, well, I don't know. They're probably there are a couple of them, but I'm just gonna pick one. I mean, getting the power back, getting the power back. I would say, but here's my favorite part about it, and this is going to sound counterintuitive a little bit. First of all, I enjoyed talking to the guys that were working the lines at the end of the street. They had to do some things to start the sequence that led to our power. I want to say later that night, but So we live in like a lot of people around here live in an area with a lot of trees, and the infrastructure's old. This is a problematic grid. I think we all know that. We're not talking out of school at all. The rankings where DTE ranks, and look, we'll talk about DTE some other time. In any case, we lose power fairly frequently, and have as long as I've been in this house. Until a few years ago, DTE came in and cut a lot of trees, and that did help some. In any case, we lost power a couple of weeks before the ice storm. Our transformer blew down the street, sounded like a shotgun, and it was just us and one other street in this whole neighborhood. So we lost power, twice in 2 weeks, and I'm not complaining. It's just, you take it for granted, like we all do. We understand we can't live our modern life without it, but it is so to this point, and the fact that we lose it, and the fact that we need a couple of machines here to run for health purposes. You know what I mean? So I decided, let's go get a generator. I never thought I'd own a generator, but I went to get a generator, and at about, the store closed at 6. I bought it. They loaded it up into the back, and I get a call from home saying the power's back on. And so I called another friend actually to say, hey, another friend called and said, hey, is the power back? And I said, yes. They live in the neighborhood. And I said, yeah, I just bought a generator. And they thanked me for buying the generator, as if the reason that we got power is because I bought the generator. And
did you keep it?
I did. At first, we're like, but then we decided, let's keep it, because let's just think of it as insurance. Mm-hmm. Just like we pay for insurance. And we may never need it. We might not need it for a few years, but we already had it. And we just thought, okay, our neighbors have one because their basement kept flooding because they would lose the power of the sump pump, and it just wasn't worth it. I mean, the damage, because insurance doesn't cover all that. So we kind of watched how they did it. So we're going to keep it and just be a little bit more prepared. And then next year we'll probably start building a bunker, and we'll start canning. And we're going to stock up with arms, I think. We're going to go first full survival mode here, man.
You'll know Sean Windsor's house with the "Don't Tread on Me" flag flying high and proud.
Absolutely. But no, my favorite moment was, I bought the generator, the power comes back on, and normally you would think, oh my God, what have I done? But no, I was just grateful to have it back, and now we have a generator. And I'm sure I don't know if you lost power in your neighborhood at all, but the sound of those generators for days and days everywhere. Because I think Ann Arbor was hit worse than anywhere. We had like a half-inch of ice. That's not always the case, but there's something about, because Ann Arbor's kind of in a valley a little bit. It's hard to see it. But if you're on the outskirts and you go downtown, especially going from west to east, you can feel, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but you're going down as you go into downtown. But in any case, I don't know if there's geologic reasons, climate reasons, but that's part of living here. Yeah, as nice as it is. Anyway, all right, man. Anything else?
I think we have to thank people, right, Sean?
Oh, we do. I thought we're in a new system. We're recording a new system, so hopefully we sound a little bit better. I was hoping that there was an AI feature of this system that would do all that for us, because I'm tired of thanking these people.
No, I'm not. I'm happy to thank
you are?
Anjanette.
You are?
Yeah, Anjanette Delgado can never be thanked enough. She signs the paychecks now, so I'm very happy.
I want to thank
her.
Robin, but that's it.
Yeah, well, Robin, our intrepid producer and editor, I think his title also includes editor Robin Chan, executive producer Kirkland Crawford, and executive producer Anjanette Delgado. And of course, we have to thank, most importantly, you, the listener, for sharing a little bit of time with us once again this week.
You sound so enthusiastic. It's beautiful. That's the most sincere thank you I think I've ever heard. You're not just reading. Are you reading on the script?
I am. No, it's the script in my head.
But Stephen Wright monotone.
We know, Sean. We have an all-star listener out there, and he's been very. He sends us an email every week. He's very dedicated. We really appreciate him listening to us. So he's getting a small little token gift from us, and I'm not above or beyond sending that and helping out our devout listener. So how can we tell if you're a devout listener? How can that be, Sean? if you drop comments, right?
Yeah, you can email us, obviously, but maybe as important, maybe important, no offense to our great listener out there, but you rate us, and then the top thing would be to subscribe. You can find us wherever you find your favorite podcast, Apple, Spotify, but yeah, subscribe. It just downloads, and you're driving around and you're angry and you want to hear the soothing tones, or maybe you're sleepy and you want to get angry, and so you put us on whatever it is, whatever motivates you. Subscribe, rate us, let us know what you think, and that's what you wanted, right, Carlos?
If you, it's worth listening to the dulcet tones of Sean Windsor. So please subscribe.
I was not going to use that word, but I'm glad you did. All right, man. Let's wrap this up. Poor Robin. We need to get him out of here. The listeners have put up with this for far long enough. So until next week, Carlos. Thank you. It was fun as always, and we will be back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Sean.